Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking this slightly hidden gem from 1998. It's called Die 7 Meilenstiefel by Rolf Fink. If you translate that, it literally means the 7-league boots, that classic fairy tale metaphor for taking these absolutely giant strides. But here's the thing, Fink isn't giving us some dense academic lecture here. No way. Instead, he's offering up a series of highly practical, beautifully simple exercises that are designed to help us make, massive strides in our own personal growth. Right out of the gate, Fink hits us with this deeply provocative question. He asks, why do we fear blindness if we don't truly use our eyes? It really makes you stop and think, right? He points out that, if we all lacked ears, we wouldn't even need noise barriers. Or if we actually tasted what we ate, we wouldn't eat a fraction of what we consume. It's just a striking reminder of how we take our senses completely for granted. We're literally walking through life on autopilot. So this explainer, it's all about turning that autopilot off. Let's jump into section 1, Ein Vademecum fürs Leben, which translates to a handbook for life. Fink wrote this when he was 49 years old, really as a distillation of his life lessons. And it's not some rigid, punishing program. It's an invitation to discover. It's supposed to be relaxed. These exercises, they require precision and total honesty for sure, but they demand very little of your actual time. Like think notes, just a handful of repetitions can produce these massive aha moments. So it's a relaxed but highly focused journey. Moving right along to section 2, Wahrnehmung ohne zu urteilen. That is perception without judging. This step targets something we all do, our totally exhausting, unconscious habit of constantly judging our environment. Fink grounds this whole idea with this brilliant quote from the baseball legend Yogi Berra. You can see a lot by observing. I know, it kind of sounds like a joke, but there is a profound truth in there. We constantly confuse thinking and judging with actual perceiving. When you look at something and immediately think, oh, that's ugly, or that's way too big, you stopped observing. You've started judging. We want to draw a hard line between the two. And Fink brilliantly illustrates how we can break that habit through what he calls the observation shift. It's a simple exercise. First, just pick 4 to 7 objects or people around you. Second step, go ahead and rapidly judge them. Too big, too small, beautiful, functional. Just get it all out of your system. Then, step 3, observe them again. But this time, you're a completely neutral camera. Just take in the forms, the light, the colors, the shadows. It's actually staggering how different the mental energy is between judging and just being a neutral observer. Next up is section 3, Die Welt neu spüren, or feeling the world anew. So once you actually clear that judgment from your mind, you can start using your senses the way they were actually meant to be used. Take this incredibly tactile exercise, the mindful fruit exercise. Fink asks you to grab a piece of fruit. Could be a peach, a plum, a strawberry, whatever. First, visually imagine it in your hand. Like, how heavy is it? What does the skin feel like? Only after you do that do you actually pick it up and compare your imagination to the physical reality. Finally, close your eyes and take a very slow bite. Really feel the surface with your lips, your teeth, your tongue. It literally forces you to slow down and experience the physical world with this totally renewed, intense attention. And you can totally apply this to hearing too. Fink suggests this really cool variant exercise. Close your eyes and listen to someone you spend a lot of time with. But here's the catch. Do not listen to the actual content of what they're saying. Ignore the words. Listen only to the pitch, the rhythm, and the melody of their voice. It's like listening to a song. It's a completely different way of connecting with someone's presence without getting all tangled up in their words. Let's move to section 4, Das schwierige Gespräch, the difficult conversation. So here we are shifting from internal mindfulness to external communication. We're tackling those frustrating, endless loops that couples and colleagues always seem to fall into. Fink tells the story of 2 people working towards the exact same goal, just trying to fix a light bulb, but they're constantly fighting over totally trivial things. They spend their time endlessly arguing, generating these massive lists of accusations to explain why the other person is making the relationship so difficult. They were trying to fix a light bulb, right? But they were completely missing the actual human connection. The core takeaway here is perfectly captured in this quote from the text. It is impossible to fight each other when you understand each other. Think about that. If you're fighting, by definition, an understanding is broken down. To rebuild that connection, Fink introduces this incredibly powerful, somewhat clinical exercise. We call this scripting the conflict. Grab a blank sheet of paper. On the left side, you're going to write down a recent difficult conversation exactly as it happened. Literally like a movie script. What did you say? What did they say? stick purely to the spoken words. This is where you document the surface level of the argument. Which brings us to section 5, das Ungesagte und Versteckte, the unsaid and the hidden. Because, let's be real, the surface is never the whole story. So, on the right side of that exact same piece of paper, you add the unspoken. You write down all those hidden thoughts, the feelings, the assumptions, and silent interpretations you had during that conversation that you never actually said out loud. And write down what you assume the other person was feeling but not saying. When you put the left side and the right side by side, wow, you suddenly expose this hidden emotional engine that is actually driving the conflict. Seeing those two sides together reveals what Fink calls the cascade of misunderstanding. It goes like this. Just because something is said doesn't mean it's heard. Just because it's heard doesn't mean it's understood. And crucially, just because it's understood does not mean it is agreed with. We skip these steps all the time, right? We just assume that saying words automatically equals achieving agreement. When we look back at our script from that previous exercise, Think asks us to actively search for hidden accusations or absolute demands. Think about it. How often are we actually speaking in ultimatums? How often does a simple, everyday request masquerade as a total attack on someone's character? Recognizing this dynamic in our conversations is absolutely vital. Now for section 6, von du zu ich, from you to I. To actually fix these communication breakdowns, we have to change the conversational dynamic from the ground up. Take a you message or du Botschaft. Saying something like, you never want to eat with me, is an accusation, right? It puts the other person on the defensive instantly. But the I message, or ich Botschaft, saying, I would like to eat with you tonight, expresses the exact same underlying desire, but you are taking ownership of it. It's a clear statement of your personal desire, not an attack or a judgment of the other person's character. It's a real game changer. Transforming your complaints into constructive requests means following a few really basic rules. First, you have to formulate clear wishes, not just vague complaints. Second, you absolutely must avoid absolute commands that leave the other person with no exit. And most importantly, you have to allow your partner room to negotiate. A conversation should be an invitation to solve a puzzle together, not some hostage situation where one person is just dictating all the terms. Look, even in the quietest, most mundane moments, these underlying sensitivities exist. Fink really wants us to use these exercises to discover the places of our own greatest vulnerability during a conversation. Like, where are you most easily hurt? Because if you know your own triggers and you start to recognize when you're slipping into those defensive you messages, you can actually catch yourself. You can de-escalate the situation before it blows up into a fight. Fink leaves us with this final, powerful, and honestly, kind of humorous question. How can you protect yourself while keeping a conversation constructive, remembering that not all people are sadists? It's so easy to assume the worst in an argument, right? To think the other person is literally out to get you, but usually they're just as misunderstood and frustrated as you are. By putting on these 7 league boots, by stepping back into that neutral observation, feeling the world honestly, mapping the unspoken, and really owning our I messages, we protect ourselves, not by building walls, but with clarity. And honestly, that is a giant stride worth taking.